Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa amma ba'd. Today, inshallah, we will be completing the recitation of the last half of the 28th juz, the 28th para. The ayat that will be our focus today is verse number 6 of Surah Al-Tahrim, which is as follows: Ba'd a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara wa quduha an-nasu wal hijara عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. Which translates as that Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O you who believe, قu أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا, save yourselves, أنفسكم وأهليكم, and your families, نارا, from a fire, وقودها الناس والحجارة, the fuel of that fire is human beings and stones. الناس والحجارة, عليها ملائكة, appointed over that fire, to watch over that fire are angels, malaika, appointed on that fire are angels, غلاظ شداد, who are stern and severe, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم, those angels do not disobey Allah in what He orders them, ويفعلون ما يؤمرون, and they do whatever they are ordered to do. They do whatever they are ordered to do. This ayah of the Quran, this verse of the Holy Quran, is addressing first and foremost the people of Iman. When we hear Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O you who believe, O people of Iman, then our ears should stand up. We should tune in and we should focus our attention. One of my teachers would say that Allah Ta'ala is calling us through that relationship which we have with Him, which is that relationship of Iman. When we compare this to the mother calling out to her children, and she says, son, she says, beta, and you drop what you're doing and you go see what your elderly mother is calling you for. These words are so full of love because she is calling you by that relationship that you have with her. And really, truth be told, you only realize the value of those love-filled words when you lose your parents. You long to hear that beta when your parents have passed away. Then you long for that. Allah Ta'ala is addressing us, the people of Iman, and telling us that, O you who believe, that we save ourselves and our families from the fire of Jahannam, which is وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, which is fueled by النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, which is fueled by people and stones. We know the unbearable heat of the fire of this dunya, that are fueled by wood, that are fueled by gas, oil, and so on. But the fire of Jahannam is fueled by people and stones, which is much, much more intense. In a hadith narrated by Imām Mālik rahmatullah alayhi in his Muwattas, Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu reports that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Naru bani Adam allati yuqiduna juz'un min sab'ina juz'an min nari Jahannam, that the fire of the children of Adam, meaning the fire of human beings, which we kindle, which they kindle, is 1/70th part of the fire of Jahannam. The Sahaba said, فَقَالُوا Ya Rasulallah, in kanat lakafiya, that Ya Rasulullah, this fire is certainly enough, meaning the fire of this dunya. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Innaha fuddilat alayha bi tis'in wa sittina juz'a, that fire, the fire of Jahannam, is 69 times greater and more intense. It's 69 times greater and more intense. Then the ayat continues, after addressing us Muslims, after addressing the people of Iman and telling them to safeguard themselves and their families from a fire, meaning the fire of Jahannam, the fire of hell, whose fuel is people and stones, an-nasu wal hijara. Then towards the end of this ayat, the angels that are in charge of it, whose names are az-zabaniya, as mentioned in the Quran, they're described. They are such angels, ghiladun, shidadun, they are stern and severe, la ya'soon Allah ma amrahum, who do not disobey Allah Ta'ala in what He orders them to do, وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ, and they do whatever they have been ordered to do, meaning that they are harsh and they are terrible, from whom no inmate of Jahannam, of Hellfire, will be able to save himself, whether it's by using force, by using power, by using strength, by trying to sweet talk them, by trying to bribe them, flatter them. None of this will work. They do what they have been commanded by Allah Ta'ala. Then we go back to the ayat. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا, that save yourselves and your family from a fire. Ahlikum is the word, the family, which we've translated as family. And that refers specifically to a person's wife and children, and the days of past, it would also include the slaves of the household. When this ayat was revealed, Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu inquired that, Ya Rasulullah, we understand how to save ourselves from the hellfire, meaning that we guard ourselves from sins, we stay away from sins and the disobedience of Allah Ta'ala, and we carry out the commands of Allah Ta'ala. But how do we save our families from the hellfire? How do we save our families from the hellfire? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied that instruct them to stay away from that which Allah Ta'ala has forbidden and ask them to carry out deeds which Allah Ta'ala has commanded. This will rescue them from the fire of Jahannam. My friends, common sense demands that we make every effort to rescue ourselves and our families from the fire of Jahannam. And this can be achieved by ensuring that we ourselves, first and foremost, don't go against Allah Ta'ala's commands, and that our families do the same. And in addition, that we should educate them about the matters of the Sharia, and we ensure that they're able to practice all of these diligently. The fuqaha, rahimahumullah, they've pointed out that according to this ayat of the Quran, it is the responsibility of every Muslim husband, of every Muslim father, to educate the wife and children in matters of the obligations of the Sharia. It is the responsibility to educate the wife and children in matters of the obligations of the Sharia, in matters of halal and haram, and to do their tarbiyah, to act diligently on those as well. A hadith states that rahimallahu rajulan qala ya ahlah salatakum siyamakum zakatakum miskinakum yatimakum jiranakum la'alla Allah yajma'ukum ma'ahu fil jannah. That may Allah Ta'ala shower His mercy upon such a person who says that, Ya ahlah, O my family, O my wife and children, salatakum, be mindful of your salah, of your prayers, siyamakum, of your fasting, zakatakum, your zakat, miskinakum, your poor folk, yatimakum, and your orphans, and jiranakum, and your neighbors. La'alla yajma'ukum ma'ahu fil jannah. It is hopeful that Allah Ta'ala will gather all these with Him in Jannat, in paradise. Your prayers, your fasting, and so on in this hadith, it implies to taking care of those duties, fulfilling those obligations, and not ignoring them. And then when referring to the poor, to the orphans and the neighbors, it means to fulfill their rights willingly and readily. وَقِيلَ إِنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَذَابًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ جَهِلَ أَهْلُهُ. That it has also been said by the Salaf, by the pious predecessors, that the person who will be deepest in punishment on the day of Qiyamah will be the one whose family is ignorant and unaware of the deen of the religion. In one famous hadith narrated by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, it comes that أَلَا كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible for his flock. Meaning you all have people who you're tasked with looking after and being responsible for. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And each of you will be asked about his flock. فَالْإِمَامُ الَّذِي عَلَى النَّاسِ رَاعٍ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. The leader who is in charge over the people is a shepherd and is responsible for his flock, and he will be questioned about his flock. وَالرَّجُلُ رَاعٍ عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And the man is a shepherd with regards to his household, with the people of his household, and he will be questioned about his flock. وَالْمَرْأَةُ رَاعِيَةٌ عَلَى بَيْتِ زَوْجِهَا وَوَلَدِهِ وَهِيَ مَسْئُولَةٌ عَنْهُمْ. And a woman is a shepherdess, is in charge of her husband's house and children, and she's responsible for them and will be questioned about them as well. And then the hadith goes on, وَعَبْدُ الرَّجُلِ رَاعٍ عَلَى مَالِ سَيِّدِهِ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْهُ. And that this slave is a shepherd in regards to his master's property, and he will be responsible and questioned regarding that. And then again, we are reminded, Allah, listen up, all of you, فَكُلُّكُمْ رَاءٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible and will be questioned regarding his flock. In other words, each of us has a role and responsibility towards others in our household, towards others in our family. It is the job of the husband and wife to learn and impart deen to their children. Unfortunately, our standards of Deeni education are so low, so low that it's really very shameful. I feel ashamed looking at this, that in our community we are content if we see that our child has finished Qaida and has read the Quran by looking once. Then we pull them out of masjid, we pull them out of madrasa, and we think, chalo, that's done, masjid's done now. No need for anything further, and we pull them out of class. We pull them out of classes just when they are at their most vulnerable, in their teens or before that. And then we throw them out to the wolves without any ilm of deen, without any knowledge of the Shariat and the Sunnat. And then they are either taken in by the wolves and influenced by atheism and agnosticism, or they are learning random tidbits of deen, random snippets of deen, and their religion is just things that they've heard and that they've seen. And often a lot of that's negative culture as well. If you look at those youth, unfortunately, a lot of cases come to us. If you look at youth these days, and at those people in particular who unfortunately have left Islam, and you dig into the root cause, and often you will find that either it's one of these things. Either number one, they did not have a deep insight into Islam in the first place. Number two was that they just wanted to fit in and gave in to peer pressure. Or number three, that they were fed up of cultural baggage, forced marriages, this rasam, that rivaj, you must marry this person. This is not our deen, my friend. إِذَا جَاءَكُم مَّن تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَانكِحُوهُ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ. That when a person comes to you with a proposal and you are happy with their deen and their character, then get them married. And if you don't do this, there will be fitna and fasad on the earth. What is it? Deen and character. Deen and character. Deenahu wa khuluqahu. Deen and character. It's not caste. It's not where you are from in Pakistan. It's deen and character. My friends, our children are our future. We need to invest in them and appraise and value those things that you impart to your children at their impressionable age. It's not telling us that, what's the going rate of Hachi these days? We are willing to pay upwards of 10 to 12,000 pounds a year per year for private education for our child. But if an Islamic class is running and it costs a few pounds, then we'll say, oh wow, it's too expensive. An Arabic proverb comes to mind, which is that al-ilmu fi s-sighri kan-naqshi fil hajri. That al-ilmu fi s-sighri kan-naqshi fil hajri. That knowledge acquired during childhood, during a young age, is like that engraving that's done upon stone, meaning it's permanent. It's permanent. These things stay with children for the rest of their lives. My heart breaks, my friends. I hear what's going on in the community. We've had questions before, and I tell you the honest truth, from parents who live in our city, who live in Glasgow, that I want my child to get admission into so-and-so school. It's so-and-so high-ranking school. That's a faith school. They get good results in that school, and they ask, the question that they ask is, would it be jaiz for me? Would it be permissible for me to take my child to the church, to have him baptized and registered as a Catholic so that we can get into this school where their education standards are good? You've sold your deen, people. Yes, we need Muslims with professional jobs who are articulate, who have good education, but they need to be people of Iman first and foremost. They need to be people who are grounded in their deen and that have ta'alluq ma'Allah. They have a connection with their Lord. These are the precious people. They have successful dunya, and their dunya is a means of earning their akhirat. Instill deen into your children from a young age, my friends. Another scenario that I was made aware of recently, and this is all happening in our community. We can't bury our heads in the sand. This is all happening in our community. Another case that came recently in front of me, another scenario I was made aware of, was a 12 or 13-year-old girl whose mother was very worried about her. The girl was insisting that she wears very tight and revealing clothes, and the mother was worried about her, and also that she's spending a lot of time on her phone. She wasn't listening to her mother, she was rebelling, and then the mother thought to look through her daughter's phone, and she found that, ma'azallah, she'd been engaged in an explicit conversation and sharing nude pictures with another man. My heart breaks, my friends. This isn't something that just happens one day, a switch is flicked and that's it, they become like this. It happens over time. It happens over time. It's a process that happens over time. And regardless of how to address the current situation, the root cause is lack of tarbiyah, is lack of a good Islamic upbringing. Haya, modesty, is one of those things that are instilled into children from a young age, that no one sees my satr, that part of the body that needs to be covered, that are my clothes covering me properly. In fact, many of you will be familiar with Muhaddith al-Asr, Shaykh Yunus Jaunpuri rahmatullah alayhi. He was the Shaykh he taught Sahih al-Bukhari for 50 years after Hazrat Mawlana Shaykh al-Hadith Sahib, Mawlana Zakaria rahmatullah alayhi, whose books are lying here. For 50 years he taught Sahih al-Bukhari in Darul Uloom Saharanpur, big seat of learning in the subcontinent. He was once, he used to come to the UK frequently, rahmatullah alayhi. He passed away in 2017. It was always one of my wishes to get ijāzah of hadith from him, but the year I went to study Sahih al-Bukhari is the year that he passed away, just 1 month before I enrolled. Ajib. Hazrat rahmatullah alayhi, he used to come to the UK every year for a number of years. And, as is the habit, alhamdulillah, that when elders and scholars come, then, people go to meet them. They take their children to meet them, to greet them and take their du'as as well. So someone came to meet Shaykh, and they took their children with them as well. And one of their children was a 4 or 5-year-old girl, and she was wearing leggings. Hazrat Rahmatullah alayhi said to the father, to the parents at that time, he strongly advised them that even at this age, dress the children in modest clothes, because that will be what they're comfortable wearing when they're older. Kurta and shalwar is modest, that's what he recommended. Loose fitting clothes, essentially, they don't reveal the shape of the body. And another thing, that when children, when they become mature, another concern, another complaint that comes to us is that ye baligh ho gaya, namaz nahi padhta. He's become mature, but he doesn't pray. I'm always nagging him, pray, but he doesn't pray. You know, my friend Ajib, the root of this again is that the child hasn't seen you praying. And had you encouraged them and rewarded them for praying, done their tarbiyat when they were younger, and you had done their tarbiyat such that by the time they were baligh, that they already had a habit of praying salah on time, 5 times a day, then you wouldn't be in this situation. Al-ilmu fi sighri kan-naqshi fil hajri, that what is imparted at that young age is like the engraving onto stone. It's permanent. So my friends, our children are our future. We need to invest in them. Value that nurturing and that nourishment of deen into the children, and spend your time, spend your efforts and even your wealth on this. It will not only last your children for a lifetime, but it will benefit you and your akhirat as well. When you're 6 foot under, when you leave a pious, knowledgeable child behind, then what will they do? They will first of all value your parenting. They will do charity work in your name. They will do khidmat of deen, and they will do khidmat of humanity in your name, and they will make dua for you. And this is what we will all be in need of after we die. It won't be the MB, CHB, BSc, Doctor, MPhil. It won't be any of that after the name that gives you rahat and gives you sukoon in your qabr. It will be that child doing work of deen in your name and lifting their hands and making dua for you. So may Allah Ta'ala grant us understanding. May Allah Ta'ala allow us ourselves, along with our families and children, to learn and practice deen throughout our lives. And may Allah Ta'ala safeguard our iman and the iman of our generations to come until our very last breaths. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.